Hello and welcome to the GCN Racing News Show. This week on the show we have a special for you with a few interesting season stats looking back at the year's racing. We also have all the usual news, transfer updates and stories from the racing world. Let's start off with those stats from the 2020 season, and a massive thank you to Killian Kelly from World of Cycling over on the GCN app for compiling some of these numbers for you back in his statistics cave. 2020 was the year that no Pro Continental level team won a Grand Tour stage. They were all won by World Tour teams. Since the current team tier system was introduced with the Pro Tour in 2005, this is the first time that that's happened. Perhaps an indication that the teams were always aware with the COVID situation that the next day's racing could be their last, so there was no time for taking it easy. The only World Tour teams who didn't win a Grand Tour stage were Cofidis, Mitchelton Scott and Trek Segafredo. Although Mitchelton Scott did have the yellow jersey for a while with Adam Yates, and Trek Segafredo, they did get on the Tour de France podium with Richie Porte. For Cofidis, it's 12 years now since they won a stage of the Tour de France. Rumour has it that their director sportives have been carrying around a bottle of champagne in the boot of their team car at the Tour de France ever since Sylvain Chavanel won their last stage in 2008. Maybe next year, hey lads. Although, I'm not sure I'd want to be drinking a warm bottle of champagne that's been driven around France every summer for 12 years. Lloydie probably would though. Probably get in trouble for saying that as well. Riders from a total of 20 countries won a Grand Tour stage this year, from all around the world: Australia, Ecuador, Kazakhstan, Canada, as well as the usual cycling heartlands, France, Italy, Spain and Belgium amongst others. And Ireland. Well, hey. It might seem like a given that plenty of different nationalities would be winning Grand Tour stages, given how global the sport has become in recent years. But as recently as 2014, only 12 different countries won Grand Tour stages. So 20 in 2020 really is a diverse set of results. On the final day of the Vuelta, the Irish sprinter Sam Bennett was a whisker away from winning his second stage of the race. He was ultimately beaten by his former teammate Pascal Ackermann, but in the GCN app and via the GCN Racing Twitter account, we got asked the question a lot in the build-up to that stage. Had anyone ever won the final stage of all three Grand Tours before? Well, as this is exactly what Bennett just missed out on, having previously won the final sprint stages into Milan and Paris in the Giro and the Tour, the answer is yes, it has been done before, twice, but not since the 1950s, when both Lorenzo Magni and Rick van Steenberg managed it. If any of you have any other questions about cycling trivia that you'd love to know the answer to, don't hesitate to leave a comment in the GCN app, or indeed get in touch with us on Twitter at GCN Racing. Last year, the only rider to take part in all 5 Monument Classics was Philippe Gilbert. And of course, he won one of them, Paris-Roubaix. This year, sadly, we didn't have Paris-Roubaix, but even though there were only 4 monuments rather than 5, only 3 riders took part in all of them. But again, there was a winner amongst them. There was David Martinelli of Astana, Alberto Bettiol, last year's winner of the Tour of Flanders, but the final rider to take part in all 4, and the only one of them who finished all 4, was the Tour of Flanders winner, Mathieu van der Poel. He is the only monument winner ever whose dad has also won a monument. His dad, Henri van der Poel, won Flanders and Liège-Bastogne-Liège in the 1980s. And as if that wasn't enough, his granddad won a monument too, the one and only Raymond Poulidor, who won Milan-San Remo in 1961. We haven't just been looking back at the results of 2020 though. Oh no, we've taken the liberty of trawling through all of the riders and teams who got fined for being all kinds of naughty during the 3 Grand Tours. Everything from headbutts to sticky bottles, to littering or inappropriate behaviour in front of the public, aka stopping for a wee in a dodgy place. Been there before, sorry everyone. The UCI gathered up a total of 67,000 Swiss francs. That's about 73,000 US dollars from all the teams over the course of the 3 Grand Tours. The naughtiest World Tour team was EF Pro Cycling, who collected 27 different fines, amounting to a bill of 9,000 Swiss francs. This figure was massively boosted in one big publicity stunt when they walked out onto the stage at the Giro presentation wearing their divisive new team kit with the duck on it. Each of the 8 riders, as well as their DS on the day, were given a 500 Swiss franc fine each. Ouch. I think it's probably likely that the resulting publicity was worth it though, and well, what a kit. Personally, I loved that one. The UCI do enjoy their fines regarding clothing. The other biggest fines handed out were both for Jumbo-Visma at the final time trial of the Tour de France, when both of their former time trial world champions got a £2,000 fine each for the incorrect use of the rainbow trim on their skin suits. The two teams with the most littering fines, 6 each, were UAE Team Emirates and my old mates at Israel Startup Nation. Come on lads, come on, what are you doing? I'll give you a call after this anyway. And the team who got the most fines for getting sticky bottles was Movistar with 4, including one of the most outrageous sticky bottles you will ever see by Hector Carretero when he was trying to bridge the breakaway on stage 12 of the Giro. He didn't even take notice of the bottle. Incredible, just chucked it afterwards. But we shouldn't just be highlighting the baddies. The goodies also emerged from our number crunching. 2 World Tour teams weren't fined at all for littering throughout all 3 Grand Tours. They were AG Desert and NTT. So well done to both of them, and AG Desert were also the team with the lowest number of fines in total, with just 4. What about the fastest race this year? Well, that award goes to Filippo Ganna, who flew around the Giro d'Italia prologue in a whopping 58.8 kilometers an hour. Filippo also won all 3 of the fastest TTs of the year. Now, Filippo was fast, but actually a tad slower than the fastest recorded race in the last 20 years. Rick Verbrugge won the Giro prologue back in 2001 with a speed of 58.9 kilometers an hour. Sorry, Filippo. Aside from TTs though, the fastest men's road race wasn't actually in the World Tour, but over in Romania at the Tour of Zvecaland, stage 3B to be precise, with the winner David Busse averaging 52.6 kilometers an hour. Fastest women's race was at the National Polish TT Champs when Ala Plekta finished in 47.2 kilometers an hour, with the fastest road race being the GP Belek in Turkey, run at a speed of 45.9 kilometers an hour. What about the rider who has finished racing the men's 2020 season at the slowest speed? Well, that award goes to Nicholas Roach, who raced 5,091 kilometers at an average speed of 36.8 kilometers an hour. Maybe not an example of Roach's poor form, he raced strongly all season, more of a reflection on the fact that he seemingly chose the hardest, hideous races on the calendar. Tour de France, the Dauphiné, World Championship, Alpes Maritime d'Hiver, and of course, well, the Irish National Championships. What about the number of nations competing in a single race? In times of COVID-19, we were worried before the season began that some riders wouldn't manage to travel quite as much. However, aside from the World Championships, numbers were similar to previous years. Across men's and women's races, the Belgian one-day Omloop het Hageland had the largest diversity of nations, with 37 separate countries taking part. Actually, 1 nation higher than last year's highest of 36. Giulio Ciccone has the crown for the stat I definitely wouldn't have been close to during my career: the longest run without a DNF. The Italian has finished every race he has started since April of 2017. In pro cycling, that is some stat to be proud of. Which nation took the most wins across Grand Tours, Worlds and Monuments, men and women? Yep, you guessed it, the Dutch. It's been their year really, hasn't it? Especially backed up by Dutch squad Jumbo-Visma's overall successes this season. Dutch riders took 5 wins in the sport's biggest races, 2 second places and 3 thirds, over double the amount of podium finishes by a nation, beating Slovenia to the top step. On to this week's racing news now, and the big announcement of the week was the fact that Alex Dowsett will be launching a new attempt on the hour record this December at the Manchester Velodrome in the UK. Looking to beat the current record set by Victor Campenaerts of 55.039 kilometres, Campenaerts has already stated that if Dowsett does take the record, he'll be happy to mount a fresh challenge. Either way, Dowsett will be happy after announcing a contract extension with Israel Startup Nation last week. He had remained tight-lipped on his 2020 plans, but the 32-year-old will link up with Chris Froome in what is shaping up to be a quality team over on the Israeli World Tour squad. The CPA, or Official Riders Union, have promised voting changes in 2022. After the setup of a new riders union called the Riders Union, pressure has been put on the CPA to make changes. Many have included the CPA as being a puppet of the UCI and not sticking up for riders as they should. At the moment, riders can only vote for the president of the CPA in person at the World Championships each year. The promise is that by 2022, this process will be electronic and remote. Either way, the CPA is still an organisation struggling for popularity amongst riders, and the news now that they are not able to pay out fully to retired riders from the transitional fund won't do them any favours. This fund is made up of a percentage taken from all races' prize money each year, and is supposed to pay out €12,500 to retired riders who've been pro for over 4 years. However, it has emerged that only €3,000 has been paid out to some recently retired riders. And I feel the questions around the CPA's ability to manage riders' best interests aren't going to go away anytime soon. The Vuelta a España is over and the race made it to Madrid, despite many of us wondering if it would due to the worsening COVID-19 situation here in Europe. Since the race finished, it has emerged that 45 police officers working during the event have tested positive for the virus. No riders have tested positive, and although the race has been praised for its ability to run during the pandemic whilst keeping riders safe, it's clear that going ahead has still had an impact on those involved in the operation as a whole. And we hope everyone affected makes a full recovery. Three-time US cyclocross champion Stephen Hyde has announced he'll be heading up a multi-surface race team next year. The Steve Tilford Foundation race team will be made up of Raylan Nuss and former pro road cyclist Joseph Schmalz, who will also make up the squad. The team is named after Steve Tilford, the first US mountain bike champion who was tragically killed following a traffic incident east of Utah. The squad will operate as an extension of the Steve Tilford Foundation, a non-for-profit organisation created to help young people pursue passions through the sport of cycling, and will target gravel and cyclocross races. Jumbo-Visma have overtaken the Koenig Quick-Step at the very last in the UCI team rankings, with those points scored by Roglic at the Vuelta a España giving the Dutch squad the overall win, and also allowing the team to become the first ever Dutch team to top the world ranking since their inception in 1984. Almost like that now famous win by Roglic over Alaphilippe on the line at Liège. Jumbo-Visma have definitely announced themselves as the world's top team this year, and they are deserved winners of the team's rankings. The disciplinary case following Fabio Jakobsen's crash in the Tour de Pologne has come to an end, with Dylan Groenewegen being handed a 9-month ban by the UCI. A huge ban for a non-doping offence, and one which has divided the cycling world. The Koenig Quick-Step boss Lefevre has welcomed the ban and is actually currently still pursuing legal action against Groenewegen in court. However, many riders, and myself actually, have questioned the ban. It was an incident many feel was worsened by the lack of proper safety infrastructure at the finish. Many say the barriers collapsed too easily, further compounding the injuries received by Jakobsen. In this way, the ban handed to Groenewegen seems like scapegoating by the sport's governing body, distracting from the real problem. Rider safety can be managed better by the organisation which is supposedly in control of such matters. Shifting the blame to one single rider is unfair, and in my opinion detracts the attention away from UCI's responsibility in this case. As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Fabio Jakobsen is of course still recovering from his injuries. Reconstruction work was carried out on his jaw and new teeth will be reimplanted in 3 months' time. It's a massive road to recovery for the Dutch sprinter, and as always, we send him our very best. EF Pro Cycling and Cannondale have teamed up to increase diversity in cycling through the introduction of new cycling programs at historically black colleges and universities, and tribal colleges and universities. More details of the program are to follow, but the initial aim will be to help increase racial diversity in cycling by improving access to the sport at school level. Sadly, COVID-19 has also impacted on the 2021 season once more, with the cancellation of the Tour de Yorkshire. After all races in Australia were cancelled, this is another sign that the pandemic is still to impact on racing as we head into the new year, unfortunately. We really cross our fingers that the Yorkshire Tour returns in future seasons, because it has provided us with some fantastic racing so far. Miriam Nunes became the first Ecuadorian in history to win the Vuelta a Colombia Femenina during the week, winning the overall by 24 seconds. The race was run over 5 stages and was a UCI 2.2 level event. Nunes showing that Ecuadorian cycling is on the up, along with Richard Carapaz and Jonathan Caicedo's exploits in Europe. Bjarne Riis has left World Tour squad NTT Pro Cycling and is without a role in the sport once more. He came into the squad with a promising wave of impetus and was due to buy a 30% stake in the team. That fell through, however, and the squad has been left battling for survival. Doug Ryder, the team's principal, stated last week that all is not yet lost though, and the team are very close to staying on the road next year. We really cross our fingers. Great Britain won the women's team pursuit at the UEC European Track Championships. The team of Josie Knight, Laura Kenny, Katie Archibald and Nia Kelly took the gold medal in a time of 4 minutes and 10 seconds, only 0.2 of a second off the world record, which was set by the British women at the Rio Olympics. Blisteringly fast and an ominous indication of the direction of the women's squad coming towards the Tokyo Olympics next year. Now, for all the latest news and results in the world of cyclocross, we have our very own Jeremy Powers to update you all.
Thanks, Conor. We actually had 2 cross races over the last week, so let's kick it off with Wednesday, where we had the 3rd round of the Superprestige in Niel, Belgium, the Jaarmarkt Cross. It's called the Annual Market Cross, if you translated it. It was first a race in 1964. The Jaarmarkt Cross has become one of the mainstays on the calendar as quite a historic event, with many of the big names of the sport having taken wins there over the years. Anyway, it was a new track which was designed by 3-time world champion Erwin Verwecke and had a little bit of everything. It really had crazy mud right off the start where they flew down this descent and the mud was up to the riders' kneecaps practically. It also had some really fast sectors, some super steep embankments, and what the race has become known for, this massive man-made sand pit just before the finish line. Anyway, it made for some really incredible and exciting racing. So let's kick things off with the women's race. It was 3 riders that would distance themselves from the rest. World champion Celine Del Carmen Alvarado of Alpecin Fenix, Yara Kastelijn of Cruyff and Fridstads, and Denise Betsema of Paul Salzen Bingo. Now, Anna-Marie Verst of the 777 women's team had a tumble coming down that steep, muddy descent, and then ultimately ended up in a mechanical, which took her out of the front group. Lucinda Braun of the Telenet Balawasa team would chase throughout the race. Ultimately, it was Alvarado and Betsema that traded attacks for most of the race, but coming into 2 laps to go, Lucinda Brand would connect with the front group and up the pace and put everyone under a considerable amount of pressure in the last lap. Brand led and ran through the last lap sandpit like an absolute banshee, and she was able to gap off Alvarado just a little bit and held that all the way to a thrilling sprint finish to take her 2nd victory of the season. Alvarado would finish up in 2nd, and Betsema would finish out the podium in 3rd. Now, Alvarado leads the overall in the Superprestige with 44 points, Brand with 41 points, and Worst with 39 points respectively. The men's race was also a really exciting duel, but it was Laurent Sweeck that hit out like a rocket ship from lap 1 to take the lead and ultimately draw out his competition. That was newly crowned European champion Eli Iserbyt and Telenet Balawasa Lions rider Toon Aerts. Now, Sweeck led for most of the race, riding impeccably through the sand pit each lap, literally never putting a foot down or having a one misstep. Toon Aerts would flat with 1 lap before the finish line, and that ultimately left it a race among teammates with Laurent Sweeck and Eli Iserbyt. Now, Sweeck and Iserbyt would trade attacks throughout the last 2 laps, but Sweeck would ride the sand one last time flawlessly to take his first win of the season. Iserbyt ended up 2nd, and Aerts rounded out the podium in 3rd. Now, the overall for the Superprestige on the men's side is led by Eli Iserbyt with 43 points, Toon Aerts at 42 points, and Laurent Sweeck with 39 points. The 4th round of the Superprestige is coming up this Sunday in Merckxplas, Belgium. So now on the weekend, we had the 4th round of the Ethias Cross in Leuven, Belgium. The track, an absolute scorcher, super fast as it's become known for its fast lap times. It also has what I call a triple threat of barely rideable steep embankments and really fast single track technical descents. It also has a pump track section just before the finish line. Anyways, in the women's race, it was French Olympic mountain biker Perrine Clauzel that would open the race up in a big way and put her name on the map for many cyclocross fans around the globe. Clauzel would go on to lead the race all the way until the half point, where then current world champion Celine Del Carmen Alvarado would bridge across and bring with her Anna-Marie Verst of the 777 women's team, Denise Betsema of Paul Salzen-Bingle and Manon Bakker of the Cruyff and Fridstad's team, as well as Lucinda Brand of Telenet Balawas Alliance. Now at the front, there were many changes in the lead, but last year's winner, Betsema, would turn the pace up and put everyone under a lot of pressure in the last quarter of the race. Bakker ultimately messed up her rear derailleur, which took her off the front group. Then, though, Lucinda Brand of Telenet Balawas Alliance had a different idea. She attacked through the start-finish line on the last lap, heading into what would be a lap for the history books. Alvarado crashed in the first slick grass turn. Alvarado remounted quickly. Brand then crashed on the triple threat descent, giving a lead to Betsema in a small gap, but it allowed Alvarado to reconnect. Through the last pump section, Alvarado was able to catch Betsema and head into the long finishing straight, where she was able to outkick last year's winner, Denise Betsema, to take her first victory at the Leuven cyclo-cross race. So, in the men's race, it was the three-time race winner at this course, Toon Aerts, that would set the lead of the race by setting an absolutely blistering pace from the start that only Laurens Sweeck of Paul Salzen-Bingle could match. Now, Eli Iservit and Michael van Toornhout would try to come across, but they weren't able to fully connect today. It came down to a race between the Belgian national champion Laurens Sweeck and Toon Aerts, all the way to the finish line in a heated duel of Belgian supremacy, with a lot of drama going on in between, a dog running out on the course, among other things. But it was Laurens Sweeck who would out sprint and do a dramatic big time finish. It was crazy because Laurens Sweeck actually sprinted in the drops. Michael van Toornhout would go on to finish third on the day to round out the podium. And that's everything from the cyclocross racing scene. If you haven't checked us out yet over on the GCN Race Pass, with all the road racing finished up for the year, you know that you need a little bit of cyclocross in your life. We'll see you over there.
Thanks for that, Jeremy. Transfer news now, and we bring you news of the first ever Puerto Rican World Tour rider. Abner Gonzalez has signed a 3-year contract with Movistar. The 20-year-old has spent much of his racing career in Spain and won a round of the Spanish Road Series this year. Movistar management have described the youngster as an all-rounder who has no fear of going on the attack, with plenty of potential still to be discovered. Abner himself described the move as a dream come true, and we here at GCN are looking forward to seeing the Puerto Rican talent in action next season. Chloe Dykert has announced that she will be riding for Canyon SRAM next year in a 4-year deal, in a surprise move actually away from her current team 2020 Pro Cycling. The 23-year-old American will target the time trial at the Tokyo Games next year. Dygert is still recovering from the heavy lacerations he attained in a crash during the Imola World Champs this year, but is confident of a full return to fitness in time for the start of next season, and we wish her all the best. Lizzie Banks has also announced that she has found a new team for 2021, penning a deal with Ceratizit WNT, which she announced over on the World of Cycling show last week actually. The 1-year deal will keep Banks in the pro peloton. Swiss national champion Elise Chabet is rumoured in Swiss media to be heading to Canyon SRAM. However, there are still 5 riders from the failed Paula K team who sadly still haven't announced a team for next year, including Michaela Harvey, who finished 5th at this year's Giro Rosa. Mark Cavendish is one high-profile rider who still hasn't arrived for the following season. 9 contract extensions were announced at Bahrain Merida, with the Manx sprinting legend not amongst those names. Rumours still swirl on Cavendish's place in the peloton next year, and we await further news. I think a rider of Cavendish's calibre, second on the all-time list of Tour de France wins, deserves a place in the peloton if he wishes to continue. Amongst those re-signing at Bahrain are Phil Bauhaus and Heinrich Hausler. Also in the list was Welsh climbing talent Stevie Williams, who has absolute bags of potential but has been held back by a knee injury. Watch this space. If Williams gets back to his full health, he will be a rider to look out for next year. Emmanuel Gebrselassie has signed with Trek Segafredo. The Eritrean rider brings bags of climbing talent to Trek and also happens to be a super nice guy as well. Brilliant signing by Segafredo. He'll also be joined by Antonio Tiberi and Matthias Skelmos Jenser. Okay, right now time for some quick fire contract updates. I hope I don't miss any, but these are the latest contract announcements. Rigoberto Urán and TJ Van Garderen will stay with EF Pro Cycling. Urán for 2 more years and Van Garderen for 1 more year. Felix Groschartner will stay with Bora Hansgrohe for a further 2 seasons, as will Cyril Gauthier at B&B Hotels. Robert Power is set to leave Sunweb, his destination still unknown at this time. Jempe Jokker has signed with Cofidis. Vlasov is rumoured to be breaking his contract with Astana and heading to Ineos. Niamh Fisher-Black and the experienced Carol Ann Canwell have also signed at SD Works Cycling. Lastly, Katie Klaus will ride for Rally Cycling in 2021. And that's about all we have time for on the show this week. I hope you have enjoyed all those stats. Thanks again to Killian Kelly for crunching all the numbers. It's been a pleasure to be on the Racing News Show this week. And thanks for watching. See you all soon.